You think I'm shit? Well, you're wrong. Because I'm champagne. And you're shit. Until the day you die.
Charlotte, I'm so happy that you're available to chat with me today, because what many people may not know is that we have a history, because I was your teacher at film school. And I was a big champion of your work.
You were.
When you were a student there, and saw immediately this is a filmmaker, even if you didn't know that you were, even if you didn't quite have that confidence. So I always appreciated you as a student, that there was a grown-up, okay, and whose work was grown up as well. And we've always had serious talks about film and the challenges of film. And so I'm happy you were here to do this.
When I'm in despair and life has turned into a mess, I know that I don't dare to end my search for happiness.
I have some questions, somewhat sequentially through the journey of the film, perhaps, or the process of making a film. You wrote Happiness on the back of Welcome to the Dollhouse, breaking out at Toronto and at Sundance. It was a hit. It was the first film you made on your own terms. How were you feeling? And
I was happy.
you were happy?
I was very happy. It's success. It's a good thing. I prefer success to failure. People say you learn a lot from failure. I learn a lot more from success.
So true.
And this success, I opened so many doors, and so I had to take advantage of that situation because I knew it might never happen again. So I wrote something, I suppose, that had been simmering not so much on a conscious level for a while, and I let it come out, and I saw it was a little bit charged, and almost all of those doors closed when they read the script.
But when you were writing, were you able to push out the success of Dollhouse? Like, did the specter of critics or audience or people's expectations loom upon you at all, or was it as though you were
I just thought about what I wanted to do. As I said, I knew how precious this was, this opportunity, this window to do what I wanted. Meanwhile, they wanted, I think, Fox, the TV station, they wanted to create a sitcom based on Dollhouse, and fine by me. I was curious. I mean, the more banal or the more tacky it would be, I would be fine with it. The movie is what it is, so I didn't worry about that. For some odd reason, I became a movie director, even though really I grew up watching TV so much more than I ever watched movies.
Well, I don't think moving away from the sitcom is totally outside of Happiness, because it feels as though, it is rooted not just in society and suburban life, but in the way that is presented in mainstream media and in sitcoms specifically.
So on point, exactly, because in fact, a lot of musical interstitial moments, I thought of like the way in which families are presented in sitcoms, and all of that certainly infused my sense of the world, the reality that I was setting up here. That's why it puzzles me that I became a movie person and not a TV person. But I just brought the TV into the movie and kind of used it to amplify things. about the world that I'm putting.
Yeah, well, I think it also amplifies the discomfort because you align yourself with the characters in a way that you might in a sitcom. Certain things are set up, like scenes or introductions of characters or Bill entering the home to that music cue and then the microwave dinging, and it kind of enters this very familiar scene off the back of him having picked up that Teen Boy magazine.
That's the trap, you know?
Yeah.
You want to seduce your audience. You want to win them over. And no better way than giving them certain kinds of familiar, as they call them, tropes or what have you, from the TV world. And to kind of make it accessible and relatable in a way.
Yeah.
Because that's the point here, is that for me, you want to engage emotionally with your audience, even as at the same time there's a kind of detachment that where a certain kind of irony or a comedy plays in, you know, and so it's always fraught with that kind of ambiguity.
This isn't working.
You mentioned like earlier, you know, learning more through success than failure being preferable, and I think in class there were many kind of adages like that you gave us, but one that related specifically to writing was let the audience say this is fucked up, let the characters be true to their own perversions, and I think that's certainly the case.
Well, I'm not so judgmental.
Well, no, but I think it's about being judgmental and not being judgmental of the characters yourself. And I think that's necessary when you're writing a character or channeling them.
It's true, and look, for the actors as well, you can't play these characters without, in some sense, without inhabiting them with love. I mean, you have to love your character and believe in the truth of your character and the struggle of your character in order to make it feel real. You can't be commenting on it. You have to inhabit it, and that's what makes it scary, and because it feels real. That's the aim.
And is that something that always comes naturally to you as a writer, to your actors, or is it something you have to stay vigilant about?
I don't know. I don't self-analyze so much. I just
Do you ever
have
look
a
at the page
sense-
and find that you have been judgmental of a character?
I don't think in that way. I mean, when I'm writing, I become an actor. You know, I'm playing Joy, and then I'm playing Andy. You know,
that's a nice way to put it.
I inhabit it as best I can both ways. And so while I might not agree or subscribe to the beliefs or morality, what have you, of these characters, or their judgment, I should say, of these characters, I try to be true to them.
Yeah.
I might say, no, don't do that, but that's who they are, you know. So I try to be an actor as I'm writing it, and you know, and I'm only ready to show the script to producers and so forth if I feel then it's got a kind of charge to it. It's an emotional experience for me from beginning to end, and if it's not, making movies is just too hard for me to put myself through that nightmare.
Hey, what's up?
Did you hear what happened to Pedro?
Who's Pedro?
You know, the night doorman?
Oh, yeah. What?
He was found bludgeoned to death in his apartment this morning.
Ugh.
Yeah, and supposedly, his penis was missing.
Oh.
Did you share drafts of the script with, like, not producers, but with friends? Did you make adjustments based on?
I had a couple of friends that are not filmmakers, but they read, and I would give the script when I was writing it in 30-page installments, and I'd have one question: do you want to know what happens next? That's all, And they said, yeah, let's see the next section, So that's how I wrote it in 4 parts like that. Because movies are kind of merciless. They have this motor. And if you don't put enough substance into that motor, if the motor's not strong enough, the script is going to putter, So, and the best way to assess where you are is to ask that question. Do I want to know or do I care what happens next?
Yeah. Having been on set with you and having read interviews and watched interviews with your actors, I think you're a lot more deliberate in knowing exactly what you're looking for and working toward that. Do you leave room to be surprised by what happens on set? Were there moments in Happiness specifically where your intention or a scene or a moment changed based on what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, things definitely. It's funny. Movie to movie, everything depends on the material, the scene, and so forth. Sometimes there is space for improvisation within very strict parameters, and sometimes no, there is very little room. But the actors just have to trust that the material, the text itself, gives them what they need, the fuel to play it out. I think there were a number of scenes that, like I said, I didn't anticipate this, But sometimes you're surprised in not such a good way, but sometimes in a good way. When you write a script, it really sinks or swims on the basis of the actors and what the actors can do with it. They make you look like a better writer.
Yeah, I mean, all of your collaborators do, ideally.
That's exactly.
Do you remember positive surprises on this?
Yeah. There were things, it was puzzling, I remember the big dramatic scene towards the end where the father and the son have this dialogue, their final dialogue. Like, I didn't tell this kid to cry or anything, I just, but he was very emotionally attuned to what was going on and had formed a real bond with the actor, Dylan Baker. And so, I never felt incumbent upon me to explain any of this to an 11-year-old. I left that to his parents, who were always around on set, or the father was, I think, mainly the person who would be there. And because I felt it was the parents to discuss any of this.
But he had the full context of what his role was, of what that relationship was.
Yeah, but what does an 11-year-old understand or make of it all? They're words on a page. The only way he can come through is if he has an emotional connection in some way. He doesn't have to, he can't possibly understand the ramifications in the way that we do as an adult. But what he does do is respond emotionally to what he understands is going on in that scene. But that's not, I never told a kid anywhere, I need you to cry here, But you set up a kind of atmosphere, a situation, and you have a kind of text to work with that it's a kind of mysterious, intuitive kind of response that the actor has to the scenario. The thing about directing is to be alert to the unexpected and know how to, when it's a good thing that you're capturing, to recognize it and to capture it. Even though it was never there on the shot list or in the script, you have to be alive to what is happening in front of you on the screen.
That's the fun. It can be.
It's very stressful.
It is, but that's where I find the most. That's what balances out the suffering of production, are those moments.
Right. You have a few of those moments, and the rest is like.
But there's more moments of those in production than in writing or in post-production, I find, which is what makes production for me completely counter to my entire personality, the most enjoyable part of the process.
And for me, production is
you
just
suffer the most.
It's hellish. Yeah, it is. Because I don't have the control that I have when I'm writing.
That's true.
And there's so much pressure on you. If you can get this shot, but then you're going to lose that scene, or the sun is going down in 6 minutes, 3 minutes, we're looking at clouds, it's
You missed it.
yeah, it's over, or the producer saying, you have to, I think we have to lose a few days, we're over schedule. And that's why I'm not the most hireable kind of director also, because I have yet to make a movie that wraps on budget, on schedule. It's just never happened. So I'm a failure in that sense, production-wise. It's funny, that's the catch, the paradox is that, you want as many days as possible when you're in production because you see how much work it is.
Yeah.
But I can't wait till it's over. And I wish I could get it done in a much shorter amount of time.
Of course, but that's not how it works. You shoot for 30 days and you use 20 of them on screen. But
Yeah.
if you only shot the 20, you'd inevitably fuck up
Or you'd
some
be
of it,
right, or
and
you'd know, or
then you
maybe-
wouldn't, and
or
then
maybe-
you'd be too late to have an entire film. I think.
Well, unless if I had thought it through more thoroughly. I
No,
don't
it doesn't matter
know.
how much you think it through. There are too many forces.
Well, you're lucky. Some filmmakers, many like you, relish the experience of being on set.
Yeah.
And I am not cut out of that cloth. For me, it is really hellish, and I see my obituary is Mr. Solondz collapsed on the 3rd day of production of his new movie, which will never be finished, etc. I think Ang Lee, if he's making a movie, he's got 100 crew and cast, he never feels more alive. And for me, it's needless to say.
Where do you suffer least in the process?
I love casting, and while I didn't have to get movie stars, although I was very strongly encouraged to get movie stars, and particularly for the part that Dylan Baker played. And fortunately, no one of any value wanted to touch the part. And so I was free
Yeah.
to cast Dylan, who was evidently the right person when he came in to read for me. It was so clear this was it's funny, someone walks into a room and that's it, So I just wanted to take advantage of this freedom because I never knew if I'd have it again. And it's funny, I'm just now remembering, where the part that Phil Hoffman played, actually, that was unlike the Dylan Baker's part. Phil Hoffman's part, every actor wanted to play that part. They would fly in to read. It was very stressful. They would say, "This is me," But Phil, he read for me. It's funny. The first time he read, I wasn't sure. I had to call him back, and had approached him a little bit differently, and it was then I knew I had the right person. And when we shook hands, I remember he had a very clammy handshake, and I said, "Yes, this is the guy." He was great. I loved Phil, and he was so prepared, for when he came on set. Never had anything but pleasure from both Dylan and Phil on the process of making this movie, and both of them also had a very brutally sharp sense of comedy as well.
Did you see the playoffs last night?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
I was on my knees praying for that shot.
It worked.
With almost everybody, I had a really good experience.
You worked with the same editor on this as you did on Dollhouse.
Dollhouse, yes. I've had great relationships with all my editors. And prep is fine. I'm good with prep because there's always a sense of hope and a sense of control. There's still a sense of hope. And then it's too late once you're there. It's just somehow the minute you take your first shot, like that is it. okay? And you can't go back and you can't rethink. That is it, and you have to live with that.
Well, and then on the end of the first day, you think it's okay, it's only one day, and then you get to the end of the second day, the end of the first week, and slowly your film disappears.
I mean, to me, I don't think it's okay. I think, all right, you live with compromise.
Yeah.
You know, that's the nature of being a director. You're going to lose a number of battles. But you have to see the big picture. And it took me years to be able to see the glass half full. When I was much younger, I was always on the half empty side. So I'm actually a much sunnier personality now than I was back then.
On set? you
On
mean?
set. It's less stressful than it was with those first few movies, yeah.
Yeah. You tested this film on.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
That's what people did back then.
So you were asked to test it. It
I
wasn't.
think so, but I never had a problem testing. I actually found it very fruitful. I remember one member of the audience got up and said, I go to the movies regularly. And I feel bad for the director, she said, because this movie, he is unintentionally funny. And I love that comment. There was one person who was very angry and swore he was going to come after the filmmaker and that this movie would never get released. So I had different audiences, but I didn't want to get like a hip audience, you know, the kind of movie that actually would go see it, I guess. I just wanted a general audience. Because when I write a script, the movie, they call it an art movie, but really it's very accessible, the narrative. There's nothing like confusing about what's going on.
Do you like men?
Yes, but it's not so simple.
Are you lesbian?
No.
It's not filled with complicated, there's no plot, you know, there's a series of stories here. And so I like I like seeing the way in which different people respond to it. And for the most part, people were pretty rough. I found, you know, it was hard. You have to steel yourself for people, you know, speaking up and telling you how much they hate the movie.
Yeah.
Or how terrible and incompetent and idiotic and so forth. But, you know, sometimes you let that go, but it's useful. You know, sometimes an audience says they really like or don't like a character, and it's not maybe the character, but if you make an adjustment, you think, I know what it is. You kind of try and diagnose really what the problem is, you know. The danger of showing friends or people who know the story is that they're just not fresh to the material and not quite as honest in the way strangers can be.
I tested during the edit. Yeah. With two very different audiences. One that was stacked toward not friends, but friends of friends, film school colleagues, and another with strangers.
Yeah.
They were two very different experiences.
But did you get something out?
I did, and I got encouragement out of the first experience, which was in New York, and I was present for it.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
Yeah.
And the other screenings were in LA, and I listened in remotely. They didn't know I was there.
Right.
And it was absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
And probably provided some of the most helpful notes to the film, and not always directly.
Right, exactly. You have to know how to interpret what they're saying. What is he really saying? What is he really feeling? Why are they laughing or not laughing, and so forth.
Yeah. Once the nausea of
you just have to steel yourself.
The directness of it
wears
off.
You have your meds, you have your therapist, whatever it is.
No,
okay.
it's true. It's true. Do you, when you first screened the film at Cannes then, or kind of on the road with it, were there any memorable responses from audience members that made you feel as though they understood something of you through their understanding of the film or the point of view or sensibility expressed?
I think audiences, when they watch a movie, almost always try to attribute certain characters or qualities to the filmmaker in ways that are a little bit wrong, let's say. You know, that as a filmmaker, yes, I am reflected, and one could say in every frame of the movie. Okay, I express myself through the film, but it's so like a hall of mirrors, and so camouflaged. You know, the things that what I'm feeling it's hard to know about me personally, although as a filmmaker, yes, you can make judgments about me as a filmmaker, but it's hard to know about me personally, and yet people like to make judgments or assumptions about me personally.
I wondered whether that was something more prevalent now than it was then, this desire to draw a direct line between films and filmmakers or writers and the characters. And I find that audiences typically look in the wrong, perhaps most obvious places.
Yeah, the most obvious. Yes, I draw on all sorts of life experience and people that I know and so forth, but in ways that are not so direct and not so clear. In the end, the hope is that people can just experience the movie for what the movie is.
Yeah.
Not much is going to be gained from analyzing the mind of the director. I think just it's the experience of the movie itself that ultimately is what matters.
But I think, like, my original question was, like, what are the most satisfying audience responses to you? Like, do you feel some success as like a person expressing themselves through this form sometimes in the way the audience is?
You know, I love it. I like when an audience member is really moved by what I'm putting out there, where I feel that they really are affected. I mean, a lot of strangers have come up to me in real life, you know, just come up to me and say things that are very gratifying. Sometimes they share in ways that they wouldn't with others. You know, a woman comes up and says, you know, I was raped and I saw this movie and it really spoke to me. And then she gets on the train and just like in a flash like that. You know, people come out and very strong, have very strong responses. And that's, to know that what you've done resonates and has meaning for others and it communicates experience, that's very gratifying. There are people that look at them solely as comedic experiences, and while the comedy's there, for me it's devoid of value if it doesn't have the emotional heft that really, for me, is what drives it. You know, a telling story, for example, is when it showed at Telluride. There was a young man who came up to me afterwards, and I'm sure he was a little drunk or something. Like, I don't know, maybe he was 20. And he said, man, I really love that movie. And man, that was hilarious when that kid got raped. And I was like, you know, and I'm thinking, what have I wrought?
Yeah.
You know? And that's a price, you know, you pay as a filmmaker. You're not always going to get the response that you hope for.
Yeah.
And that people can read it and experience it in very different ways from what you intend. I don't have control over that.
No, you don't.
It's something that you have to accept about the nature of working in with charged material in this way. And that you're not attacking it in a black and white, but rather very ambiguous, very, how shall I say, implicating kind of way.
I mean, I think like the cultural import or visibility of some of what is in the film, the pedophilia, the mass shooting, even the kind of nuclear family and gender roles and relationships, they just have a different context now. Do you think with the time that's passed, any aspects of the film have been kind of strengthened or weakened as a result of that? Or have you felt audiences' reactions kind of shift as you've continued to share the film and talk about the film?
Well, I can say for certain this movie would not have gotten financed today. There's no way. This movie would not get made. This movie wouldn't get released, or Dollhouse or Storytelling. I mean, they would not get made in today's world.
Yeah.
Okay, for a host of reasons. The way the culture, supposedly, if you want to call it that, things have shifted. And yes, movies always take on different meaning as they age. The way we look at movies we love from the 50s and now, oh my God, I can't believe I love that. And like, it's forbidden to love this movie now. Or, do you love it in a different way? Or do you now detach yourself from that experience? What value does it really, what does it really mean to you now? So things are always in flux. All movies take on different meanings as time passes. And that makes them more interesting. And that's why they're always trying to save these artifacts of movies that may not be, it's not a question of being great, but they are reflective of the world in which they took place, and you want to acknowledge and recognize the truth of the way in which the world operated, rather than the way you think today in this particular time, imposing your morality of today upon what was a different time.
I mean, I know you say you don't kind of self-analyze, but of course other people do. Have you ever found their analysis to shed light on something you hadn't thought about in your work or in this film specifically?
I always loved, my favorite comment that and I don't think it was for this movie, it was for another movie, but I always loved it, is Jay Hoberman said something once. He was comparing me with John Waters, and he said it wasn't a compliment, and I don't even agree, but I just love what he said. But maybe on some level I do, but he said for John Waters, all that is alien is human. For Todd, all that is human is alien. Something like that. I kind of cracked up about that. And it wasn't even like so much of a diss, but, obviously it is. But I understand the truth of that, though I will, I'm not going to argue. Why would I argue?
Yeah.
That's his opinion. But that was kind of nice to hear, even if I don't quite subscribe to it.
But what is your relationship to criticism, film criticism, formal film criticism anyway?
I mean, look, if people like the movie, I'm happy. And if they don't, I'm sad,
So you read it? Do you seek it out?
Yeah, it's hard to avoid it. You just read the Times or whatever every day, and then, you're going to, avoid that page,
You could.
It's hard.
It is hard.
And so I have a weak moral fiber in that sense, because I am susceptible to, people like it, I feel a little bit better. They don't, I feel a little bit worse. But it's, and then you move on, I'm only human. What can I say?
I was going to ask you about insecurities generally, which I think in some sense we've covered throughout the conversation. But there was a moment on the set of Wiener Dog that I remember.
You should say you were.
I was the walkie-talkie PA.
Or were you my assistant?
I drove you.
Oh, okay.
After I stopped driving actors.
Well, it was really like there's certain times you just need to be alone. Like you can't even talk to other people.
But you were very chatty in the car on the way
with you.
But I remember I learned a lot that summer.
You're scaring me. I don't know what's...
There was one day, I think it was the vet set out in Long Island, and I remember standing next to you, and you felt or expressed kind of uncertainty in that moment about it all. And I remember saying, because it was a very young crew, or many crew members were quite young, and they really did care. And that's something I do try to remember. Like, they cared about you and about the film and about their work on the film. And I think I said that, and I'm not sure if it provided any solace in the moment or not.
No, I'm sure I appreciate, you feel it when, you see people that show that it's not just a job clocking in and out, And that's a lovely, really heartening kind of experience to have people like that around you. It doesn't mean the movie's going to work out. Doesn't mean that
No, of
anything
course, it
good
doesn't-
will. You know, there's
doesn't
no.
bear on
One
the
of the
content.
first things you learn about filmmaking is there's no correlation. You learn this in film school, I'm sure. There's no correlation between how much work you put into something and the actual success of the film.
Yeah. No.
That's what's, because unlike, you know, you study history or a math or science, you work, study hard, you get an A. But with film, it's an art form, so it doesn't matter how hard you work and sweat. In the end, the movie may just not care.
It's true. And I think, like, of all the lessons that I learned from you in film school and on that set, that moment is one that I think about often, because I think writing is solitary by nature, but directing isn't. And like I said, I do find a lot of fulfillment in the process, but there's always a point at which you feel staggeringly alone, you know, and rarely do you have the chance to stand next to another director in that moment. And
Well, you know, you are alone because everything hangs on your shoulders. Ultimately, the movie comes out, it plays somewhere, it opens at a festival, what have you, and suddenly everyone else vanishes.
Yep.
And it's all on your shoulders, all credit, all blame. Whether or not you really had that idea or whether or
doesn't
not
matter.
it wasn't your idea, it doesn't matter. Everything that's in that film is on you.
Yep.
Okay, and I think when you're newer at this, I think you may forget or not realize how true that is.
Yeah.
You know, well, I don't know. What did I respond? I hope I was pleasant in my response.
you were
I don't
pleasant. You were
remember.
pleasant in your response, but it's just like a moment in time. Like I remember. Yeah, I remember the feeling of standing there and looking out at everybody, and I don't know. I find some solace in that.
Well, you're not alone in that sense amongst direct, you know,
Yeah.
that you're this sense of solitude of it all being on your shoulders, and that really, and if people ask you questions, you can't, it's so complicated, you can't explain
Yeah.
everything that's going on in here.
Yeah.
And people may not understand your reasoning, and your reasoning may not be right, but that's all you've got to work with, you know? And yes, you listen to suggestions and you dismiss or take in or other people's thoughts and
Yeah.
ideas, but you yourself, in fact, if you're being truthful, are just discovering what is this thing. You don't know.
No, you
And it's a
shouldn't. You
kind
shouldn't
of-
know.
It's like a hubris to think I know what it is. Now, I mean, but classically, there are some filmmakers who work that way. Look, Hitchcock
Yeah.
had it all mapped out in that way, and was not someone who took pleasure in like being on set, the social aspect.
No.
You know, so there are different. It's not good, bad. It's just different ways of
Yeah.
working.
I was very glad to do this. I think you were the first person that ever read a script that I wrote. And I
Right.
remember you said there's the seed of something here, and that was really all I needed to
Well,
hear.
I mean, and the film, I love that film. And in certain ways, I think it really just speaks to who you are immediately from that second year film.
Yeah.
You know, and where you're coming from and where your heart is and your sense of performance and mise en scène. It was all there. And I can't teach this stuff. I can only try and help develop some confidence for you. That's keep at it, because you've got the talent that is worth pursuing and developing. I mean, it's a testament to the possibility of something good coming out of NYU. That, you know, for all of the kinds of incompetence and corruption up above, you know, that it still can make possible something that I don't know that you would have
No.
done had you not had that structure.
No, I don't think I
in
would
which-
have.
Yeah,
I think I owe it a great deal.
yeah.
You were a student there too.
I was. I loved it. I had so much fun. I mean, everything just came together for me there. But at NYU, that's where I discovered that I felt I could speak through film.
Yeah.
And that was the discovery, the confidence I needed.
Yeah.
That you got from NY. That's the same thing I got. And you put aside, I mean, I didn't spend a day there like talking about a ripoff and a joke the program was, but it made possible for me to be, to say, yes, this is something I can do.
You light up my life, you give me hope to carry on. You light up my days and fill my nights with song. And you light up my life, you give me hope to carry on. You light up my days